stitch, and I'm going to do a little bit of a soldering lesson for all of you guys. I know that we have several videos out there on how to do soldering, but I want to show you the way that we do it here at SK Hobbies. I do have a lot of experience in this. I've been through several soldering schools. I'm also an electrical engineer, so we're going to give you a proper lesson. So one of the things that I need to get done today is on my arm Creighton, my one of my leads coming off of my phase, the pin popped off. So it's still salvageable, so we're going to clean it up and re-solder it back on there, put some new heat shrink on it. We're going to be good to go. So a couple of things before we get started on it is, what exactly do you need to get this job done? For one, you need a soldering iron. So over here on this side, you can see that I have I got a Metcal. It's a really good soldering iron, but is it what you really need to go out and buy? No, it's not. You can do it with a Weller or any of the ones you can pick up at, you know, like Lowe's or Home Depot. But you need a good soldering iron to get it done. And then you're gonna need some new heat shrink. So I picked up this kit on Amazon. It's got a wide variety of soldering heat shrink that you're going to be able to put over your wires. Ultimately, because you're going to want a different color for each one of yours, so it's easy to connect up to your ESC. My orange one that came on there came off, so I'm going to replace that with a red because I couldn't find orange in the right size, and it'll fit on there pretty good. Some of the other things, solder. So solder wise, we're using a 60-40 split, so that's a 60-40 lead to 10 ratio. It's a good solder to use for just all around soldering. You don't need nothing really fancy or big or anything else, so that works pretty good. So another thing that is a solderer's best friend is flux. You're going to need that. It helps good with the oxidization of your solder joint, but you're going to want to clean that off when you're done using the flux. You don't want to let it set there on your solder joint. It's going to help flow the solder really good, get you a nice shiny finish, which we'll show you in a minute. What you're also going to need is some isopropyl alcohol. That's going to help clean the joint up after you're finished soldering it. You're going to want to clean all that flux, and there's going to be some like residue that's on the top of the solder, so you're going to clean that up. So you're going to use a little bit of isopropyl alcohol, a good little horsehair brush to make sure you clean it up really good, and it'll evaporate because it's an alcohol base. Also, to clean up your wire and the pin, you're going to need some desoldering wick. So we're going to use that to clean up the connection on the pin. We're going to clean the wire up. We're going to re-tin it, and I'm going to show you that process. Also, you may need a pair of wire strippers. So this is a 10 gauge wire. This stripper right here goes all the way up to 8 gauge, so we have a 10 gauge on there, so if I need to strip any of it away, I still have that. And you're also going to need a pair of wire clippers. I tend to use a just normal Johnson & Johnson Q-tip for applying my flux to what I need to do. So what you do is you apply that flux for when you're going to heat it up, and then you apply solder to it, so it helps for that solder flow really good. So I'm going to bring you up top, and we're going to go from there, and we'll get working on this. All right, so we're got you guys up on top. So if you can see, the the solder pretty much just separated and pulled away from the pin. So we're going to get through and we're going to clean that up first, and we'll go from there. So it is a stiff wire, so not necessarily going to need to brace this at all. So we're going to kind of do this different. So the first thing to do is, if we're going to straighten this up, we need to add some additional solder to that so we can kind of pull that old stuff off. So 10 in your tip is good. You're going to want to make sure you get a good 10 on your tip. Clean it off with a wet sponge. Get a nice shiny tip on there. And then we're going to apply some solder to the wire. So get a good amount of solder on like that. And then we're going to use the desoldering wick. So it is absorbent when you heat it up, so you're going to want to bunch it up a little bit. And get your solder melting, and then just apply pressure like that. And you're going to see it start absorbing up into the wick. In this process, you can kind of almost re-tin the wire as you're cleaning it up. So you see that excess on the end, we're going to go ahead and get that removed. And the way we're going to do that is just apply a little bit more heat on there using the solder dewicker. All right, so we got that cleaned up a little bit. That's going to be usable. We'll be able to get that put right back into the hole and get a good connection. You see that? Still got to clean this up a little bit, so we're going to do that now. So this is a little soldering vise. You can pick it up at Harbor Freight, but it's got a little groove on it. It's going to work perfect for this video, so you guys will be able to see. We're going to zoom in a little bit on this. All right, so now that we got you zoomed in, what we're going to do is kind of do the same process. We're going to take and we got to apply heat to here and also the solder at the same time. So if we get this up, we're going to fill this in with solder. Just so we can get it cleaned up. So we got that filled in with solder. Now we're going to come across with our soldering wick, cut this old stuff off, and we're going to soak that solder back up, and what it should leave us with is a nice clean surface. So as you see here, getting that, and there, you know, there'll still be a little bit of shininess left in the pocket there, but that's just, it's going to give us a good binding when we do the resolder in. So as you can see, I'm not going to undo it because it's out of there, but it's nice and cleaned up now. So Because the heat shrink is going to fit over the top of this, I'm not going to put the heat shrink on, but if your connector that you're going to be putting on is bigger than the actual wire itself, and so you might actually have to take and slide the heat shrink over the end here. Slide that heat shrink over the end to do your solder and then pull it back. But in this case, we don't need to do that because the heat shrink will fit right over the pin. So in this process, what we're going to do is lower this down. Flat like that. And then we're going to take the motor and the wire and we're going to mate it up right there. So get it in that hole, just like that, and make sure you clean your tip and get it nice and tinned. And then we're going to apply a little bit of solder to the soldering tip, and then you're going to take a little flux. I'm going to put that on there. And then at this point here, yeah, you guys can still see, I'm going to hold the motor in place. And we're going to apply a little bit more heat. And that's going to give us a nice, good connection. So it looks like we can probably add just a tad bit more solder there. You know, when I was in the military, and I know some of you guys are watching this video that I served with, they had this saying on the boats, because I was in the submarine force, that bigger the glob, the better the job. Not necessarily. You want a better connection. So you want to make sure you got a nice clean connection. You got a nice gloss finish. How are you going to know you got a nice gloss finish? Well, we put all that flux on there. We got to take some of that flux off. So you get in here with your alcohol, isopropyl alcohol. Don't recommend using vodka, but I'm going to get in there, clean that flux off, get it nice and shiny. And then take your rag, give it a nice wipe. All right, so as you can see, we got a nice good finish there. We got it cleaned up, got it dry. Now we're going to put a piece of heat shrink over the top of it. Now we don't need all of that because you can see that we do need to have some of the pin exposed, right? Because we're going to be plugging that into our ESC. So we need to cut a little bit off. So what we want to do is just kind of measure it up, figure out our connection point, which is about right there. And so now we're going to cut it. So you need to get your pair of cutters where you marked it. And then now we have our heat shrink piece. So now we take that, we're going to slide it over, and that's where we want to put it, right like that, right? So the next device that we need to talk about is a heat shrink gun. So there's a lot of people that will use a lighter, which I guess is fine. It still works. It creates heat, but it also leaves like a little black residue over the top of it. Heat treat gun works wonders. So there we go. We've replaced that pin right back on there. Looks good as new. We're gonna reinstall it in the armor Creighton and give it a shot, and we should be good to go. All right, let me bring you back up front, and we're gonna talk a little bit more. Alrighty, so we are complete with fixing the wire and putting the pin back on for my armor Creighton motor. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys have any questions for me, get down into that comment section. I hope you guys subscribe, bash that like button. SK Hobbies AZ, I'm Stitch, and I'm out.